Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. On this ongoing series on campuses across the United States, this episode we are bringing some students who are actually on the ground and their experiences, what they are seeing, what kind of biases are there, all that and more. This is a very important episode. May I request all of you to please like this video right away, and also if you have not subscribed to our channel, please consider doing so. For today, we have two new guests and one returning guest, and I'm going to introduce you all in this next screen. So first of all, let's welcome all our guests. Namaskar Surya, Namaskar Aryan, and Namaskar Nikunj.
Namaskar.
Namaste.
Namaste.
So Surya, I'm going to start with you. What is the situation on the ground? Because we have some outrageous statements being made. It's as if people don't remember what Hamas did on October 7th. And this is standard boilerplate stuff for them. First, commit the offense. Then when there is blowback, play victim. This is exactly what they do all the time. But talk to us a little bit. You're on the ground. How does it feel? And which campus do you belong to?
Yeah, namaste. So I actually am the youth director for Hindu on campus. So I've been going from campus to campus, and we've been working with students, on the front lines who are dealing with Hindu phobia. So, I'm actually a little bit out of school, but I work with students that are that file reports of Hindu phobia. So most notably, we see as part of the so-called Gaza encampment at Columbia University, there was a really scary incident in which the protesters were using the same chants that Kashmiri militants, who were trained by the Pakistani army. They basically used those same chants for Palestine, essentially, but these were the bone-chilling and scary chants that Kashmiri Hindus heard upon being completely ethnically cleansed from the valley. And the Indian Student Association at Columbia, who posted in support of the Kashmiri Hindus and of Kashmir's true statehood, they were attacked. And then so we see like a lot of the appearances of basically these very pushing like an Islamist vision of Kashmir that ignores the ethnic cleansing and the genocide of Kashmiri Pundits. We see it at Rutgers as well recently. The Palestinian protesters had the presence of the Pakistani, the pro-Islamist flag for Kashmir, which again is, harmful to Kashmiri Hindus. And then also recently at Oberlin College, there was a teach-in called 𝗤𝙧 𝗤𝙀𝘆 𝗤𝙁. So we're seeing the same resurfacing that we unfortunately saw in 2020. Yale University and 20 other campuses had these 𝗤𝙧 𝗤𝙀𝘆 protests, and just completely inappropriate, using a Hindu holiday and shutting off comments and not allowing any Hindu voices, and saying that, Hindu nationalism is a danger to America. And they're basically indoctrinating and brainwashing these students. They're even saying no knowledge is necessary, and they're not providing anybody from the Hindu perspective. And, we fear that essentially what we see happening to Jewish students, which is really concerning, the not being allowed into libraries and the escalation, we fear that these similar tactics are now being used or could be used more broadly against Hindu students in coming years, because the Hindu voice is absolutely missing from the conversation. And it's, discrimination is totally okay if your propaganda tells you that it's okay. So, we're very concerned about the way that Hindu voices are being erased.
Thank you, Surya, for that opening statement. And I'll come back to you with a few questions right after I've had a chance to talk to Aryan. Aryan, welcome to PGurus channel for the first time. Also, Surya, I forgot to welcome you for the first time. It's an honor and pleasure to have you here. Aryan, you are on Berkeley campus right now, I take it?
Correct.
And what are you, a sophomore, a freshman, or?
I'm a freshman right now.
You're a freshman. Wow. What a reception, huh?
Yeah. It's been It's been really, really wild. Like every day when I walk to class, you can see the encampment that they set up for Gaza. If there's anything that any person should take away from this encampment, but also a lot of the anti-Hindu rhetoric going on, it's that a lot of the people have no idea what's actually going on, right? They see an Instagram post online, and then the next thing you know, they're advocating for a cause that they know very, very little about. Again, like we had a Hindu speaker at Berkeley just a few months ago, and the speaker was protested off. Thankfully, he was able to finish his talk, but there's a clear double standard, right? You'll see a lot of these very pro-Islamist, Islamist nationalist groups that are giving speeches, holding events, and there is zero protests against them, not a single protest. But then if you compare that to just one single Hindu speaker that came to speak on campus, all of a sudden you have a massive protest filled with students that don't even know what they're protesting for. If you just go to the Berkeley's course catalog, you don't have a single Hindu class. You have Islamic classes, you have Christian classes, you have Buddhist classes, you have classes on Christianity. There's no classes on Hinduism. Even the small amount of representation we have on campus, which is the South Asian, I believe it's the Institute for South Asian Studies, extremely, extremely partisan, extremely biased. There's, I think Surya can talk to more about it because she has more experience with a lot of the people that they host. But it's an echo chamber. There's not a lot of room for free speech, especially when you consider the fact that Berkeley is the home of the free speech movement. Yet there's only one narrative being played out within campus and for students, which is why I really hope to graduate early because, frankly, I personally can't take it anymore. And yeah.
That's a great motivation to get out as quickly as you possibly can. Thank you so much, Aryan. You know, UC Berkeley campus, you know, it leaves a very bad taste in my mouth also. I contributed heavily to establishing a Tamil chair there, and the people who established the Tamil chair, they've actually been pushed out. I don't have to tell you names. Many of you know who I'm talking about. Husband and wife couple. And UC Berkeley, less said the better. Anyway, that's all I can say. And so let's move on to the bigger picture here. Nikunj, I noticed that I think it was UCLA campus, that where the protests were happening, somebody put up a giant screen right across the place, and they were playing back the Hamas conquest on October 7th in loop. Now, more of this is needed, and I'm not saying that what the anti-Palestinian protesters did in UCLA on one night is right, but what choice do they have? The police just stand and say this is freedom of speech. You know, Nikunj, the freedom of speech is getting ridiculous. I'll tell you one example, Nikunj. I am covering live one protest going on in front of the Indian consulate building, March 2023. And a busload comes in. So these are not people residing in the Bay Area. Busload comes in, drops off a bunch of people. One of these guys, loudmouth, and then he wants to be heard and seen. And once he gets, you know, he knows that I'm live. Once he gets a chance, he starts talking about Hindu women and how he would like to, you know what, 4-letter words. When we did some research, this fellow is wanted for murder and other molestation cases back home in Punjab. But most likely he is going to get a residency permit here. So Nikunj, so you see these kinds of lumpens also. Now you are seeing that all these campuses, it's a good chance that the majority are not students on the campuses. These are being bussed in. These are being brought in, and I've already uncovered the numbers. $400 an hour, $3,200 to $3,500 for an 8-hour protest. My God, where's the money coming from, Nikunj? Give us the big picture as to how you are seeing this thing, and where do you think things are headed?
Yeah, no, I mean, you covered the right points, and you can see the student voices here who are speaking about like how they're concerned, like, you know, can't wait to get out of here. I want to be, you know, I'm concerned about what's going on, anti-Hindu hate and bigotry on campuses. It's been going on. I mean, obviously, October 7th was a very, you know, it was a crescendo, especially for this issue that's happening. But think about even before that, right? And Surya brought up the idea of the Holi against Hindutva, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Think about the Dismantling Global Hindutva Conference. 55 university departments sponsored it in 2021. So in 2021, and the comments made there, nobody batted an eye saying Hinduism is equal to Nazism, or Hinduism is a danger to universal brotherhood. If that was said about any other religion today, there will be like a huge uproar, right? It's essentially the people saying it will be canceled. These people's titles will be canceled, everything. But when it comes to Hinduism, it's all good. And they made it very clear. They do not distinguish between Hinduism and Hindutva, right? So they made it very clear that some people say, oh yeah, we're not talking about Hindutva or Hinduism, we're talking about Hindutva, which is a far-right Hindu nationalist movement, blah, blah, blah. But these people made it very clear. Now, it's starting from there. Then you remember Holi against Hindutva, as Surya mentioned. There's a pattern of targeting Hinduism, not even just Hindus, but Hinduism as a religion, and using and politicizing what we are about, right? So I'll come to the Kashmir point in a second, but this recently happened as well at Oberlin College, where there was a teaching, right, that talked about Holi against Hindu, organized by the Asian American Alliance and the Muslim Student Association. So no Hindu student organization organized it. But when protests happened, they started to say protesting against this Holi against Hindu is equal to Islamophobia. That's nonsense, because we are protesting against the fact that they are using our religious festivals. Now, what people don't realize is in March of 2020, Equality Labs released a statement, Why Say No to Holi? In that statement, they said Holi is a casteist festival that celebrates the burning of a low-caste woman, where men throw semen at women. Okay, this was their statement, and we have the evidence, it's there. Now, the problem is, when people say, oh, what's the problem with Holi against Hindutva? Holi against Hindutva and Equality Labs work together. And they have a very verbatim statement about how Holi is casteist and it celebrates the burning of a Dalit Bahujan woman on their website and other things. So there's so many of this background that these people are not working in isolation. The direct target is Hinduism. Now, so at Oberlin, this happened. Then you heard about Columbia University. And the latest one is at Rutgers University, where they forced the university to admit to 8 demands or so, or one of them was still confirming some people have some conflicting ideas, but we're still confirming the fact that they will be displaying flags of separatist movements, such as the Kashmiri, separatist movement that targeted and genocided Hindus and made them flee the valley by saying that Kashmir is occupied. No, man. Kashmiri Hindus were the indigenous people, and the Buddhists were indigenous to that land that you threw out, okay? And now you're turning around and saying this is occupied by who, right? So the idea is, but the problem is people have bought into this wholesale propaganda because they're scared, or they'll be considered Islamophobic or something else. But in reality, that has nothing to do with Islamophobia. It has to do with facts. The fact that now you are going to endorse and celebrate the genocide of indigenous people by hosting a flag on campus is bizarre and really ridiculous. And I know the community is up in arms, who are going to be going after Rutgers and saying this is not acceptable. So this is a pattern that we are seeing. Now, it's not just about the money. The money is coming, like you said. And this happened, by the way, other places also, where the Khalistanis were being bussed by hundreds and hundreds to different protests, etc. There is money. Money is coming from some of these Islamist organizations, some of these Khalistani organizations, and they work in tandem. Like in the SB 403, they were all working together, right? So you see these types of people working, as well as some of the leftist movements that are on campuses and outside. They literally give internships, money, stipends, etc. to these students, including tents and food and supplies, right? So a lot of these people want to do good. Many of these kids, forget about the outsiders. A lot of these kids are hungry for social justice, for doing good, etc. And they have basically seen one side of the story. And then on top of that, like Aryan said, they just see an Instagram post and go out and do this stuff. So the money is there. But now I'm going to end with something here. It's not just about the money. It's about the syllabus, okay? As Aryan said, and I'm going to give you one example at Rutgers University. Professor Audrey Trushke's syllabus in South Asian history on Kashmir completely ignores Kashmiri Pandit genocide. Completely. and blames the Indian government for being occupying the colonial, the settler colonial framework, etc. So now when you have curriculum that endorses this stuff, what do you think is going to churn out? If 20, 30 kids take that class, even if 10 of them get brainwashed and start doing this, that's going to become violent. And that's what we're seeing playing out at Rutgers day after day. And you remember back in 2019, the Rutgers students or Hindu Students Council, who tried to do an event with 𝗣𝗚𝘂𝗿 𝗔𝙗𝘍 on Kashmiri Pandits, was essentially canceled on campus because they couldn't find, quote unquote, security. Right? That's nonsense. Now you can have encampment happening at Rutgers University and the entire world security shows up, but you can't find one cop to do something for Hindus. That's completely unacceptable. So this is what's really happening on campuses. And I can tell you, day after day, we are hearing students who don't want to speak up. They don't want to come on camera. They don't even want to talk, but they are scared. They're scared of their lives because if they say something, not only will they be canceled, they'll be actually attacked physically and canceled. So I have one example I'm going to share, which is, I'm not going to share the person's name or the university or anything like that. This person, I spoke with him 2 days ago. This person has been, quote unquote, asked to take a leave of absence from his university PhD program because he stood up against all this nonsense and he stood up for the whole, refugees from the CAA and all this stuff. And he has been asked to leave. So if he takes a leave of absence, he's going to be kicked out of school, and he's an international student. Within 15 days or so, he's got to go home. So this is why international students are scared. This is why Hindu students are scared, because they don't want to be the 0.01% to stand up against this massive propaganda that is going on. And look, I am not going to get involved in Israeli-Palestinian. There are obviously geopolitical issues. There's human rights issue, whatever you want to say. That is definitely a battle that's happening, and there's a lot of anti-Semitism going on. But the problem is, why drag Kashmiri Hindus or Hindus in this battle? This is the kind of the adjacent movements that kind of target communities, because they want to showcase that, look, there are so many of these people, these so-called Hindutwas and the Zionists, they're all the same. They're working together. This kind of conspiracy that they want to bring out, and bring in the fact that this indigenous population that has been wiped out from Kashmir is exactly the same as what's going on in the Middle East, removing the complexities of the whole geopolitics in the Middle East, and equating that with what's going on with India.
Did you want to add something to that, Surya?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's important to understand why and how this is happening, right? So in the 1980s, and Nikunj knows about this as well, but the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamic Republic of Iran and these different jihadist or Islamist organizations, they basically wanted it to be not do jihad through violent means, but through political disorganization and chaos. So there's a reason they're targeting Western universities, and why countries like Qatar are pumping billions of dollars into elite American universities, because we see this in the most the two movies about Hindu issues that were so successful, Kashmir Files and Kerala Story. In both, we see the pattern of indoctrinating college students, because unfortunately they're a vulnerable population for indoctrination and brainwashing, because they're away from their families, they're away from that, and there's a huge thing of they are literally completely consumed in that environment. They need social acceptance. Their security and safety depends on it, and then they latch themselves on to these very idealistic things of colonialism and fixing the world and free speech. But obviously these things only apply, free speech only applies when they want to say something, but not when we want to say something. Colonialism only applies when we're not talking about the 30 million Hindus that were ethnically cleansed from Bangladesh or Pakistan or Kashmir, but they want to criticize India, which is a secular democracy with a growing Muslim population, right? So we see these clear inaccuracies, but unfortunately the way it's being presented to students in a propaganda machine is you either are a part of it, or it's a part of social standing. And you know, and we see how quickly the students are able to just take over these universities, and the faculty and administration are very much bought in too. And like the real grassroots movement are people like Hindu on campus, or the individual Hindu students that are really not part of some greater network other than just Hindus themselves that are fighting this. But yeah, so I don't know. It's really like, it's really something very insurmountable that we're up against here.
Surya, I'm going to ask you a question and I'll let you think about it before I come back to you for the answer. And because this question is also relevant to Nikunj, and I'm going to ask Nikunj the same question in similar words. What happens is, if you complain to, let's say, your local congressman or a local senator, the first thing they say is, look, those guys show up 10 times a day. You guys show up once a month. What is the problem with you guys? Now, the answer that will come to my mind immediately is that I have work to do. I have a 40-hour-a-week job, and I just happened to read this somewhere, and I wanted to tell you what's wrong with this. That's what I would say. But this is something that you, since you are on the campuses advising various students, you're probably going to face a similar problem when the Hindu students are going to, by the way, this is coming. Today, the Jewish students are the target. Tomorrow, it will be the Hindu students. These people know exactly who's Hindu, just like they found out who's a Jewish student. So think about how the students on the campuses need to basically stand up, and also to be able to bring it to the authorities in time for effective action. So I leave you with that thought, and I'm going to go to Nikunj and ask his thoughts on how do we tackle this problem, Nikunj?
Yeah, I mean, look, the example I gave you earlier, right? There's another similar example. A lot of these students, they go and file complaints. There was 5 to 7, maybe 10 students may have filed complaints against this individual to say he was Islamophobic, he's racist, he's against black people, like so on and so forth. It doesn't matter whether the complaints are right or wrong. They just filed them. So because they filed them, it's the university's obligation to investigate that. Now, if 10 complaints are filed against you from different people, it doesn't matter whether they're right or wrong. What's going to happen is the university is going to say, wow, 10 people have complained against this guy. There must be something wrong. So now you're called in for investigation. You know, they drag you through the ringer and make you go through all these hoops and things. And then others, people start complaining. There was a girl, and she was in a prominent university. She also had the same problem because she was holding an event on Kashmir. All of these people said, this girl's an Islamophobe. We need to you need to take investigation against her. So another 7-10 people. So this is a strategy that is being now used against Hindu and Indian students. Filing complaints is critical. So when people find instances of Hindu phobia, anti-Hindu hate, you need to file a complaint. As a student, you have the right to file a complaint. You have the right to freedom of speech. You go and file a complaint with the university's DEI office, the chancellor's office, the ombudsman. There are different lines where you can go. That's the first and foremost thing. And the second thing is representation makes a difference. And this is where organizations like Kona and everyone exist to back you up. If you have a concern, if you're scared that someone's gonna take me for a ride and I'm gonna be in trouble, reach out to us. We're going to help you. We're going to get the community to help you. And that's what we're doing with this student at that university we told him, don't back down. You have strict, very strong freedom of speech laws in the United States. No matter what happens in your university, don't back down. Go and fight it. We are behind you. That's what the community needs to do. Now, what you said, Sree Iyerji, earlier about engaging with the political side of things, okay? You are very generous to say we show up once a month. I'm sorry. We don't show up once a year, okay? We don't show up anywhere. And I'm telling you, I'm dealing with one issue right now. I can't share details. We are trying to convince a congressional member to sign something, okay? Like this new HRES 1131. He has refused. Why? Because there are groups that have shown up at his doorstep ahead of us and said, do not talk to Hindu right-wing organizations like XYZ, ABC, don't sign this thing, etc. So they put in resources to make sure that they show up. While our people don't show up, they have hundreds of excuses. If you don't show up, you're not going to get the milk. You are the crying baby, you're going to get the milk. That's what they're doing. These people show up. They talk to their representative at all levels. This is the problem we have. We need your attention to this. We want 10 minutes from you, 5 minutes from you, half hour from you. It doesn't matter. We show up and we take a selfie. Okay. So who's going to get the best attention? Not us. Who's taking selfie? Because there's nothing wrong with you. You want a selfie? Okay. Everyone can smile nicely, take a picture and go home. But if you show up as you have issues, then multiple times you need to show up. Not one person, multiple people need to show up again and again and again and say this is an issue. So if these issues are going on campus, we need to show up on campus and to our elected representative saying, we elected you, you need to take care of this. This is a public university. And even if it's a private university, still getting government help in some way, shape, or form. So the government has an obligation to look at this and say, are my funds being used improperly to promote hate on campus, or are they being used for educational purposes? So there are rules and regulations and civil rights, framework that allows us to do this. And then, of course, we need to have representation. And that's what needs to be done, essentially.
Thank you, Nikunj. And might I add that whenever you are confronted by somebody saying that you are this, you are that, I would suggest you get video evidence. Just be calm. Just bring out your phone, start recording, and don't say anything to combat them. Let them see. Usually what happens is this is boiling inside because they've been taught to do this thing right from the childhood. The moment they find somebody, they're going to pounce on you. Get the video evidence and let that speak for you when you put the complaint, because then they can't walk away from that. The video evidence has the date and time of recording, the place, you can see the backdrop, it happened in the campus, that you are going about doing your job. Because why I'm saying all this is because most Hindu American students, they're told at home, look, you have a job to do at the university, go study, get good knowledge, good education, and secure your future. And now what happens is 100% this is going to happen, kids. I'm telling you, you are next. The Jews are the first ones, but you are next. And guess what? You are higher in numbers. But do you talk together as a single voice? You need to start becoming an entity. And that's what I would say to start with. Ending thoughts. Aryan, I'll come to you in just 1 second. Surya, did you have an answer for my question?
Yeah, I do. It's a good question, Sree Iyer. So, I agree. It's more dangerous to not speak up in these times, because I think we see with the Oberlin event, that was a good example. Like, we spoke up, and just, if it's just a few people on a campus complain, even with a few Hindu students, without, a Hindu student association or Hindu student group, there is a network of Hindus that will be behind you. Like, we had a protest organized by Kona in Cleveland, and we had all these Hindus around the world, reacting around the country, around the world. And so, like, there will be people backing you and that will help you. But we need more Hindus to take jobs in, even in the things we traditionally go towards, like medicine or tech or research. There's ways to, do research that integrates with doing research on Hindu phobia or doing law or advocacy, but like in Hindu fashion. Or we have comedians like Pranav Bihari, who has like a great podcast where he kind of talks about Hindutva, but makes it more cultural and like comedian based, right? And we need people who even if you do medicine, like you can research like the different impacts of Hindu genocide or something. So there is a community that will back you, and there are Hindus who are hungry for that representation, essentially. But like we saw with the Oberlin event, at least we got the Muslim Student Association, they took their name off of the event. Of course, like, we didn't get a formal apology and they didn't publicly do that. But also with the Tufts, the 𝗤𝙑 𝗤𝙑 event, where, he's a known anti-Hindu person from a Christian.
We all know him. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so that event was at least postponed for the time being. So, like, when Hindus do things, you do see a response, because what we're essentially saying is, like, actually, you can't mess with us. You can't walk all over us. So it's actually more dangerous to not say anything, because then eventually it'll be too late. So if we stop the seeds of that being planted right now, because right now like we're a bit of a free-for-all. Like it's okay to even just attack Hinduism. Like the 𝗤𝙧𝙤𝙬𝘀𝘍 event that Aryan was talking about, they literally crossed out Bharat and wrote India, and like the Muslim Student Association and the Democratic Socialists of America. And it's like, you claim to be anti-colonialism, but India is what the British called it, right? And so like, why are you hiding the indigenous name? So there's just such clear fallacies in their logic and their thinking, and it's our absolute duty to speak up, and we can integrate it and intersect it with whatever career paths we choose. But we need young Hindus to be taking that as part of their career, or maybe making that part of their full time. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And Aryan, if you could unmute yourself, I have a question for you. Things probably are looking a little tumultuous. I mean, you've been there for 6 months, probably. You're a freshman. And UC Berkeley isn't usually this bad. Sometimes it gets worse, is what I was going to say. But Aryan, in terms of as a community, usually we have 4 or 5 events where, almost all Indian American kids will, congregate to. There will be like a Ras Garba festival. There'll be some events at Berkeley where there are, dance competitions going on. I've been to Berkeley. It's a great place where I get to show, I see, amazing stuff being delivered in like 5-minute, 10-minute skits, all that stuff. But as a group, how united or how, cohesive are you guys? Are you trying to kind of say, let's, at least stay in touch? Have you guys made some WhatsApp groups where you can share some information? Like, for example, somebody's caught by himself or herself, and he's surrounded by 6 people who are screaming abusers, right? And there should be a way to know that at least 2 or 3 of his or her friends know where that person is, so that in case there is no response on a ping, at least they kind of do a find my device and get there quickly. Anything like that happening?
Well, I hate to end it on such a somber note, but I think the biggest problem in Berkeley is mostly the quote-unquote secular Hindus, right? Most Hindus are either, as someone stated earlier, either entirely focused on schoolwork or are apolitical, or unfortunately are very, very progressive to an extent at which they don't realize that they're quite literally being brainwashed. I think in terms of Hindu Yuva and like the other Hindu groups I've been with on campus, at most, maybe 20 to 30 students, and that's it, like across a campus full of 40,000 students. So it's incredibly frustrating because a lot of the students that are, again, progressive seem to not actually know much about Hinduism, right? They go to maybe 1 or 2 Hindu events per year. They go to Diwali and they go to...
the parents force them.
Exactly. And they don't even call Holi Hindu anymore. They call it South Asian, right? And so there's this strange sense of eradication of Hindu culture and an amalgamation where it's not Hindu, but it's South Asian culture. And whereas if you see a lot of other cultural and religious groups, Muslims, Christians, etc., that are very devout, they pray sometimes twice, thrice a day. They do Ramadan, for example, very devout, whereas Hindus are more so secular. And so I think long term, when we think about, it's the Jews right now, it could be the Hindus later, it's a really, really concerning idea for me. The idea that Hindus aren't as religious in the future, especially students that, their parents immigrated here and they didn't learn necessarily all the correct values growing up. It's a somber idea for me that they're going to be entirely brainwashed and they're not going to understand a lot of these issues that have been going on in the Hindu community. So I'll just end it off on that. I would say, yeah, right now, I'd say at most, if I wanted to contact someone, if I needed help with someone, and I hate saying this, I would rather contact the Jewish community than the Hindu community, only because the Hindu community is so disunited here. There's no room for us at all. I would say, at the very least, now, if I wanted some support, I could go to the Jewish community. I've worked with them in the past on, allowing for free speech to happen on campus and confronting, especially the chancellor, when they've engaged in a lot of anti-Jewish sentiments. But I'll end it off on that. We need. Thank
you so much, Aryan. See, the thing is, you have to make a beginning. We have been caught a little bit on a surprise here. We have been, caught short-sighted, blindsided, if you will. And it's okay. The main thing is that we have to have some sort of a help system that will come to your help when you are caught by yourself. Right now, we're not going looking for trouble, but the other side is. The more they need this for their existence, guys. That is the thing that we need to understand. They need this for their existence. We have at least made our voices heard today. Those of you parents who are watching from all over the world, your children are probably here. All I can tell you is some of the things that we are discussing here applies to you also. And Kona is there always to help. So we will give you some information about how to reach us. That will be in the description section. Nikunj, if you could just do the honors for me, so that somebody who is desperate to try and find out what is happening, they can at least have a way to reach out to us. And final thought from each of you, 1 minute, where do things go from here as you see it? Nikunj, you first.
Yeah, I mean, you've verified it. This support system is needed for students. So we are here to help. We need to create as a community a support student. Aryan should not be going to the Jewish community in desperation, right? He needs to come to Hindu community first. And we are here, folks like Hindu on Campus, etc., are here to provide that support mechanism. I encourage parents to get involved. There's got to be a local support network across, not just in Berkeley, but around in the Bay Area and in Berkeley that supports, students like Aryan who do not feel safe on campus to voice their opinion and fight for this. So that is the most critical thing, because this is not going to go away. Today, this geopolitical flare-up is happening. Tomorrow, something else is going to happen, and we will always be caught with like a deer in the headlights. So do we want to be there? Do we want to be on the menu, or do we want to be on the table?
Very, very true. Surya, your turn.
Yeah, I just have to say really quick for my organization, Hindu on Campus, please donate to support us if you can. We're on the front lines fighting this vicious beast. And yeah, I agree with Aryan. I think that, obviously the Jewish community has been a great help for me personally, but back when I was in school and now too. But that being said, on a more positive note, like we are a very recent group. And as you very well correctly put, like we're not looking for trouble. We're not like a global colonizing force that's trying to take. So we never felt any reason to get prepared because we didn't know that we were going to be attacked so heavily, right? Everywhere we go. So what we need to do is we need to teach our kids. One more thing I'll say, in addition to Hindus needing to, be in careers that are about like speaking for Hindus, we also need to be teaching our kids from when they're young about, Hindu phobia and our history. And, we are one of the last surviving ancient civilizations that have made it this far, right? And even when we come to America, we don't convert or change our names or anything. So if we're living up to that legacy, then we should follow through in what does it really mean to defend Dharma. And that's what I'll say.
Wonderful, Surya. And now, Aryan, I would like to ask you, take the big picture here. You still have 3 years to go. Maybe you should be the one trying to get together some groups. It's good that you have something to fall back on, but remember that I think the Indian student body is probably bigger than the Jewish student body in Berkeley. I could be horribly wrong, of course. Be that it may. I'll give you an example. I know a friend of mine who goes to a very reputed campus in the Bay Area, and you know what he wears when he goes? He wears his veshti. Veshti is dhoti, it is pancha, it is mundu in different languages, but basically that is the traditional Indian attire. And and nobody is surprised. He goes about the campus wearing that. My point here is you have to be proud of what you are, what your religion is. The other guy wants to read namaz 5 times a day. At least Hindus, let us do some basic things that we can to remember what our great cultural civilization is. I just wanted to ask you, maybe you can think about what you want to say, and then we can, move on to Nikunj.
I think so. Obviously, on a level that we're looking at right now, I do think on college campuses specifically, it's important to work with organizations such as Hindus on Campus, Kona, in order to facilitate these discussions that aren't being had on college campuses. But I think on a macro level, we do need to start from the home. I think more kids, especially kids that are being brought up in the US, need to learn more about Hinduism. I attended Chinmay Mission for like the beginning of like the first 15, 16 years of my life, which really led me to learn about the values of Hindu Dharma, as well as the values that, I have when I make every single I make in my life. And so I think teaching kids early and young is really, really critical, because I see a lot of Indian kids, especially within, for example, as you stated, the Indian Students Association, that have no idea what Hinduism even means, what it is, our basic shlokas, our basic values. I think it starts back at the home. And I think long term, I think that's where it starts. We need to teach kids about Dharma, as well as, yes, wearing and showing and being proud of our Hinduism, right? Not necessarily being so secretive about it, and not necessarily being quiet when others tell us that we shouldn't be standing up for our values.
Thank you so much, Aryan. Excellently spoken. Nikunj, final word, and then I'm hoping that we'll come back again, because this is just the beginning. I get this feeling that somebody has latched on to a formula that they think is going to work to get their end, especially since 2 universities have even quasi-recognized them as a body where something has to be agreed to. I would have very much liked them to, show them the door and say that you broke the law. First, you suffer the consequences. Then we'll talk later. But it's not happening. So whatever it is, Nikunj, your 2 cents, so that we can wrap up after that.
No, absolutely. So this is, this is the salvo, as I say, the opening salvo of what is to come. And we hope that, you continue to host, students and all of us to come and talk about these issues. I think this is, this could become a series of things that could be happening as we go forward. As Aryan mentioned, the support network. So we have a Kona Youth Advocacy Network. If you are a young Hindu student on campus or off campus as a young professional, join us. It's called 𝗖𝗍𝗍. So we are developing that precisely for what Aryan is saying, precisely for that, because there are Hindu organizations doing good work on campus. The challenge is that they are doing a lot more of the softer stuff, which is great, but we need to have more of a advocacy focused organization on campus that addresses this issue directly, without shying away and saying, no, you are a bigot, you are advancing bigotry and Hinduphobia. And it's not xenophobia, it's directly Hinduphobia, and we will tackle this head on. So, join us, absolutely. This is going to continue, unfortunately, one situation or the other situation, because the institutionalization of bigotry against Hindus has been going on for years and years, decades, right? And this is just coming to fruition. As you sow the mango tree, 30 years later, you bear fruit, right? So now this has been sowing for years and decades. Now is coming to fruition, essentially. You mentioned, as Chinmay Mission and other organizations doing a great job. Well, what ends up happening is there's so many kids out there who are disengaged and have no idea about their culture and heritage. And as a result, they get fed a lot of nonsense on social media and on campus, and then completely shy away from their culture. So we need to inculcate and re-inculcate that, and also talk about the persecution of Hindus that has been going on for many, many years. It's not something new. And our kids don't know. So then they go and fight for persecution of other people, right? So it's like, what's the persecution of Hindus? There's no such thing as persecution, because we never talked about it. All of a sudden you show up as an 18-year-old on campus and you are being fed about persecution of other people, which, may happen or may not happen. I don't really have a point on that. What about our persecution? We need to educate kids on our persecution. The Jews do this at like 3, 4, 5 years of age about the Holocaust, when we never talk about one single instance of what happened to Hindus for the past hundreds of years. And that's the result.
Actually, one horrible parallel is, while the Hitler army was committing the Holocaust, Churchill did the exact same thing in Bengal. Yeah. Exact same thing, same years. No, and yet we don't even talk about this.
There is actually a researchers that have basically said 100 million plus people were killed under the British, with a whole host of things: famine, policies, caste policies, the Criminal Tribes Act, you name it. The horrors of the colonial experiment in India, in Bharat, that is, have claimed over 100 million people, 100 million lives. And this is not us saying. This is researchers who have come up with that the numbers. And $42 trillion, which is obviously debated by many people. Even if it's not 42 trillion, it doesn't matter. But lots of money and resources sucked out of the indigenous people and taken away. And now we are being shown as the colonizers when our land is taken away. Wow.
Yeah, to both Aryan and Nikunj's point, like it seems like they want to wear Hinduism as an outfit when it's convenient. Like they want to do holy and stuff because it's fun, right? Like they're not using the other religions' holidays because it's not as like fun for them, but like they want to just turn it inside out and like. And I think there are parents that do speak about like their own experiences of being persecuted for being Hindu, but unfortunately the kids think, oh, my parents are just being, it's like, because like it's not reflected in the society, so they think their parents are just being conservative or something, right?
Overly dramatic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Aryan. Thank you, Surya. Thank you, Nikunj. And viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.